The National Historic Site marking Andrew Johnson's home in Greeneville is in the middle of town now, but when Johnson came here in poverty in the 1820s from Raleigh, North Carolina, there was only a small settlement. But Johnson had a trade. He was a tailor, so he opened his own shop. And Jim Small, chief ranger here, says his talent at that led to another talent.
The tailoring business led into politics. At this point in our history, it wasn't very common for someone from the working class to become a politician, a successful politician. And Johnson's constituents throughout his political career would be the working class people. He would become the champion of those people.
With things like the homestead law giving common people a chance for land, and public schools in Tennessee to give everyone the chance for education.
He was about 5'7", a stocky man, very strong. It's interesting, you look at the tools of the tailoring trade, the large shears that he used as scissors, the large irons called tailor's gooses. You know, all these weighed a tremendous amount. The irons themselves are 25 or 30 pounds. So there's no doubt the man using these day in and day out had to have some excellent upper body strength, piercing black eyes, from what accounts say of Johnson's eyes.
Exhibits follow Johnson's career from State House to Congress to the Senate, where, when the Civil War broke out, he was the only Southern senator to remain in Washington. Then to military governor of Tennessee, and then, when Abraham Lincoln ran for re-election in 1864, he picked Johnson to be his vice president. Johnson
and Lincoln both strongly believed that the quicker this country could be unified and the governments of those southern states reinstituted, the better off our country would be in the end. And that is probably the reason that Johnson was selected as Lincoln's running mate.
The museum chronicles the rest of Johnson's career, too. When Lincoln was assassinated, the tailor from Greeneville was called upon to stitch up the fabric of a torn nation as its president. Political infighting led to Johnson's impeachment, and only one vote in the Senate kept him from being removed. But even when his term as president ended, his career did not.
After he left Washington, D.C. as our 17th president, he went into sort of semi-retirement, and then he would return to the U.S. Senate as one of the senators from Tennessee. And as he walked into the Senate chambers, they gave him a standing ovation. Now, what that tells you is left up to your own device, but the Senate at that time was predominantly Republican. Many of them were the same ones who had tried to throw him out of office as president. So you must come to your own conclusion there, whether or not Johnson was bitter or not.
After you've been here to the Visitor Center and learned all about the political life of Andrew Johnson, well, you can go down the road, 3 or 4 blocks that way to learn about the private life of this president.
Johnson himself was not schooled, never attended a day of school in his life, but going through his home, you'll come across numerous volumes of books, most of them heavily political science in nature. And if you think about that, when Johnson was a tailor, and when learning to read, he really began to develop an interest in political science topics. And so that became a recreational type of reading for him. And that explains the large collection of speeches and political theory books in his library.
Johnson loved to learn, that's clear from the house. He also loved music, or at least his wife Eliza did, and he loved her. So, a great piano was brought from Washington to Greeneville.
What amazes you about that piece of furniture is that it's too big to get in the house. It won't fit in the front door, and even with the legs taken off, it just doesn't fit. It was probably brought in through the windows. And that tells me as a cultural historian that piano obviously was very important to the cultural activity that took place in that house. And we've been fortunate enough to come across a collection of sheet music that the daughters had, the Johnsons had 2 daughters, that they had in their possession. And we've recorded some music from that sheet music to give the visitor an idea of what they might have listened to in the late afternoon hours and the evening hours being entertained by their family.
After his presidency, Andrew Johnson returned here to Greeneville, but in 1875, he was sent back to the Senate from Tennessee. Unfortunately, he served only a few months before he became ill and died. You have to wonder if a man like that, who had such trouble in his presidency, ever found any peace of mind before he came here to his final resting place.
Here you had a man who had obviously been very successful in business as well as in his community, and with his family, doing a fine job of raising his 5 children and then grandchildren. There's a role model there that there's a message for all of us to learn, that education is very important, not just to the school children, but continuing throughout life.
Tennessee Civil War 150 is made possible in part by Tennessee Department of Education, Tennessee Civil War Sesquicentennial Commission, and Tennessee Civil War National Heritage Area.